You stand in the middle of the grocery store aisle, staring at a mountain of fresh produce, and you feel entirely paralyzed. You hold a banana in one hand and an apple in the other, and you honestly do not know which one is going to quietly sabotage your blood sugar tomorrow morning. You read an article last week that said fruit is just natural sugar, and you can eat as much of it as you want. Then your doctor told you to treat fruit exactly like a slice of cake and avoid it entirely. So you end up buying nothing, or you buy the wrong thing and your numbers keep climbing no matter how hard you try to do the right thing. I know that specific kind of frustration because I lived right in the middle of it. I am Harold Bennett. I am 81 years old. I grew up back in Columbus, Ohio, in a house where my father worked a manufacturing job until his body gave out from ignoring the warning signs. My mother kept us healthy with common sense and simple routines. If it came from the ground, we ate it. I spent my own career in community health education trying to help folks understand medical instructions that sounded like they were written in a foreign language. Now I live out in Scottsdale, Arizona. I lost my wife, Margaret, a few years ago, and when you are keeping your own house, you realize very quickly that nobody is going to manage your daily habits for you. A couple of years ago, my regular blood work came back with numbers that made me sit up straight. My A1C, that measure of your average blood sugar over time, was creeping up into the danger zone. The doctor looked over his glasses at me and told me I needed to watch my sugar closely. I took him seriously. I threw out the cookies, I stopped putting sugar in my coffee, and I decided to focus entirely on natural things to get healthy. I started making a big glass of fresh orange juice every single morning. I snacked on very ripe bananas because they were soft and easy on the stomach. I kept a little bowl of dried fruit on the kitchen counter to stop myself from eating candy. I thought I was doing exactly what a man my age should do to protect his engine. 3 months later, I went back to the clinic. They drew my blood again. The doctor came into the room, looked at the chart, and told me my numbers were actually worse. I felt completely betrayed by my own effort. I was eating what I thought was the healthiest diet in the world, and my body was reacting like I was eating dessert for breakfast every single day. I was sitting on my porch that evening feeling pretty defeated when my daughter Laura called. She is a registered nurse up in Phoenix, and she spends her days untangling the exact kind of confusion I was dealing with. I complained to her about the doctor and told her exactly what I was eating. I expected her to be sympathetic. Instead, she asked me how long I had been treating my pancreas like a garbage disposal. Laura explained something to me that entirely changed how I understand the fuel I put into my body. She said I was completely focused on the word natural, but my body only cares about speed and volume. She told me to think of my bloodstream like a narrow irrigation ditch in a garden. If you release a slow, steady trickle of water, the soil absorbs it perfectly and everything grows. That is what happens when you eat whole food with a protective layer of natural fiber. But if you open a floodgate and dump a massive tank of water all at once, the ditch overflows, the garden floods, and you ruin the foundation. She pointed right at my morning routine. When you squeeze 3 oranges into a glass, you are throwing away all the fiber, all the pulp, and all the natural armor that slows down the sugar. You are taking the floodgate and ripping it open. The sugar hits your bloodstream in minutes. Your pancreas panics trying to produce enough insulin to handle the sudden emergency, and your engine wears down from the stress. The dried fruit on my counter was exactly the same trap. When you take a piece of fruit and remove all the water, you are left with concentrated sugar. It is a flash fire in your system. And those bananas I was eating, the ones covered in brown spots because they were so sweet. As a banana ripens, its tough starch turns entirely into fast-acting sugar. I was not eating fruit. I was eating syrup masquerading as fruit. I did not need to give up fruit. I needed to choose fruits that delivered a slow, steady trickle instead of a destructive flood. I spent the next few weeks looking into exactly what kind of fuel worked for a body that was already struggling to manage insulin. I stopped the juices immediately. I threw away the dried fruit, and I completely rebuilt my routine around 3 specific things. The first change was the simplest. I swapped my morning glass of juice for 1 whole apple. Not peeled, not baked, just a plain raw apple with the skin completely intact. That skin is the crucial part. It is a dense layer of soluble fiber. When you chew that skin and swallow it, it acts like a physical barrier in your stomach. It catches the natural sugars and forces them to release slowly into your bloodstream over several hours. Plus, that same fiber acts like a sponge in your plumbing, grabbing hold of the bad cholesterol and pulling it out of your system. You are stabilizing your blood sugar and protecting your heart with the exact same piece of food. The second addition was strawberries. I learned that you have to look at the actual volume of sugar your body has to process in a normal serving. Strawberries have an incredibly low sugar volume. You can eat a handful of them without sounding any alarms in your pancreas. But the real reason I started keeping them in my refrigerator is because of their deep red color. That pigment is a sign of protective compounds that fortify the walls of your blood vessels. When your blood sugar is unstable, your blood vessels take a brutal beating. The pipes get brittle over time. Eating strawberries is like putting a protective coating on the inside of those pipes, keeping them flexible and strong as the years go by. The third thing I brought into my house was fresh cherries. I am not talking about those bright red, artificially colored things that sit in a jar of heavy syrup. Those are just candy. I am talking about the dark, fresh cherries from the produce aisle. They are one of the most forgiving things you can possibly eat when you are managing your numbers. Their sugar enters the blood so slowly it barely registers as a bump on the monitor. But more importantly, they are packed with natural compounds that fight inflammation. As we age, our bodies accumulate internal rust. That rust causes aches, it damages our organs, and it makes insulin resistance much worse. Fresh cherries act like a natural solvent for that rust, helping the body operate smoothly again. I stopped being afraid of the fruit bowl. I just learned to respect the mechanics of it. I started eating my apple in the morning alongside a scrambled egg, letting the protein slow the digestion down even further. I snacked on strawberries instead of dried apricots. I treated fresh cherries like medicine that actually tasted good. I stopped drinking my calories entirely and let my body do the work of breaking down whole foods. 6 months later, I went back to the clinic for another blood test. This time, the doctor read the chart and looked up at me completely surprised. My A1C had dropped back down into a beautiful, stable range. My numbers looked like they belonged to a man 15 years younger. He asked me what complicated diet program I was following. I told him I just stopped opening the floodgates and started respecting the plumbing. After 60, the little things are what matter most. The body does not ask twice in the same way. You might be sitting there feeling exhausted because everything you eat seems to make your numbers spike. You might think you have to live on water and plain chicken breast for the rest of your life just to survive. You might feel like your engine is broken beyond repair. It isn't. The independence we want to keep tomorrow is protected in the small, quiet habits we build today. You do not have to declare war on your food. You just have to understand how it behaves once you swallow it. Stop drinking your fruit. Stop eating it out of a dried package. Go buy a fresh apple, leave the skin on, and let your body remember how to process good fuel at a natural pace. I am going to head into the kitchen now and wash a handful of fresh strawberries. Take care of yourself.